Pause for just a heartbeat, because there are moments that seem ordinary until heaven quietly reveals that they were changing everything all along. You did not arrive here by accident, and neither did these words. Long before this moment found you, another heart had already begun carrying questions it could no longer silence. That heart belongs to someone whose journey has been slowly moving toward yours, even while they believed they understood the entire story. Yet today, something shifted. A truth they never expected to uncover gently reached them, and instead of bringing the certainty they imagined, it awakened an emotion they had been trying to keep hidden from themselves. Don't skip, because what unfolds next is not about blame or regret. It is about understanding the invisible places where love quietly grows, even through misunderstanding. Stay till the end, because something important is waiting for you, and every sentence is another piece of a picture that has been incomplete for far too long. They believed they knew why you became quiet. They believed they understood why your words sometimes disappeared before they could be spoken, why your kindness often came wrapped in silence instead of explanations. From a distance, silence can appear like indifference. But today they discovered that silence was never empty. It was carrying feelings too deep to fit inside ordinary conversations. The moment this realization reached them, they stopped looking at your past through the same eyes. Suddenly, memories they had dismissed began returning one after another, each carrying details they had overlooked. A conversation that once felt ordinary now sounded completely different. A smile they thought was effortless suddenly revealed hidden courage. Even your quiet departures began to make sense in ways they had never imagined. They were not hurt because you disappointed them. They were hurt because they realized how much you had carried without asking anyone to carry it with you. Sometimes the greatest sorrow is not learning that someone changed. Sometimes it is realizing they were quietly protecting everyone else while no one noticed what they themselves were holding inside. That realization settled deeply within their heart today. It did not arrive with loud emotion. It arrived with stillness. The kind of stillness that makes someone stop speaking because they are finally hearing what has always been there beneath the surface. For the first time, they questioned every assumption they had ever made about you. They wondered how many moments they had misunderstood simply because they never paused long enough to look beyond appearances. There is a difference between seeing someone and truly understanding them. Today, that difference became impossible for them to ignore. As this truth unfolded, another unexpected feeling quietly appeared. They realized that while they had been waiting for answers from you, you had been hoping someone would simply understand without forcing you to explain every hidden chapter of your life. That thought stayed with them far longer than they expected. It followed them through every quiet moment, reminding them that some hearts never ask for attention. They only hope to be understood. Perhaps this is why your path has never followed ordinary timing. Some connections are not delayed because they are forgotten. They are delayed because understanding must arrive before closeness can truly last. Without that understanding, even beautiful moments remain incomplete. But something within their heart refuses to return to the way it was before today. They cannot unknow what they have finally seen. They cannot pretend that your story is as simple as they once believed. Every memory is slowly rearranging itself into a new picture, one that carries more compassion than judgment, more patience than assumption, and more hope than uncertainty. There is still one piece of this truth they have not fully faced, however. It is the one realization that has quietly followed every other discovery, and once they allow themselves to accept it completely, nothing inside them will remain the same. That moment is closer than either of you realizes, and it begins where this story continues. There are moments when the heart grows quieter, not because it has found peace, but because it is finally listening to what it ignored for far too long. This is where their journey continued. Long after the first realization settled within them, they found themselves returning to thoughts of you without even trying. Every ordinary moment seemed to carry an unexpected reminder. A familiar place. A passing conversation. A simple melody. None of these things spoke your name aloud, yet somehow every one of them pointed gently back to you. Stay a little longer, because the next piece of this story explains why their heart could no longer remain unchanged. The truth they uncovered was not dramatic. It was deeply human. They learned that many of the moments they once interpreted as distance were actually quiet acts of care. They began remembering the times you stepped back instead of creating conflict, the times you chose patience over proving yourself right, the times you carried disappointment without placing it on someone else's shoulders. They suddenly realized that what looked like weakness from afar had actually required remarkable strength. That realization touched them more deeply than they expected. The more they reflected, the more uncomfortable another thought became. They wondered how different everything might have felt if they had asked one more question instead of making one more assumption. How many conversations had ended too early because neither heart knew the hidden reason behind the other's silence? Questions like these have no immediate answers, yet they have a way of opening doors that certainty could never unlock. Their heart did not become heavy because of something you had done wrong. It became heavy because they finally understood how often you had protected your own feelings simply to preserve peace around you. They imagined the words you never spoke, not because they lacked courage, but because you cared more about harmony than being understood. In that quiet realization, something inside them softened. Don't skip this moment, because what happened next was even more unexpected. Instead of focusing on your past choices, they began examining their own. They replayed conversations, expressions, and little details that once seemed insignificant. They noticed places where they could have listened more carefully, where they might have offered reassurance instead of waiting for certainty. This was no longer about solving a mystery. It had become a journey of seeing another soul with clearer eyes. Then came the realization they had been unconsciously avoiding. They admitted to themselves that your presence had never truly left them. Even during seasons of silence, something within them had continued searching for pieces of you. They simply hadn't understood why until now. The truth they discovered had not pushed them away. It had quietly drawn them closer, because compassion often creates bridges where assumptions once built walls. There is something extraordinary about being understood without having to rewrite your entire story. Whether you realize it or not, your quiet resilience has already spoken more loudly than endless explanations ever could. The heart that finally recognized this truth is beginning to value things it once overlooked. Patience now looks beautiful to them. Kindness now feels unforgettable. Your quiet strength now carries a meaning they never noticed before. Something important is still waiting ahead. They have not yet shared what they are feeling with anyone. These thoughts remain tucked away in the deepest corner of their heart, growing stronger with every passing day. And the reason they continue keeping it there is the very thing that will change everything in the next part. A quiet turning point rarely announces itself. It arrives unnoticed, like the first light before sunrise, changing everything while the world still believes nothing has happened. This is where their heart began moving in a direction they could no longer control. The truth they had learned about you was no longer just a memory. It had become part of the way they saw you, part of every thought that followed, part of every quiet moment when their mind wandered without permission. Stay till the end, because another layer is about to unfold, and it carries a realization they never expected to face. For the first time, they stopped asking, "Why did this happen?" and started asking, "What was this person protecting?" That single question transformed everything. Instead of seeing unfinished conversations, they saw silent courage. Instead of remembering distance, they remembered restraint. Instead of focusing on what was missing, they began noticing everything that had quietly been given without recognition. It surprised them how many small moments suddenly became meaningful. A gentle reply you once offered. A kind gesture that received little attention. A time you chose understanding instead of pride. These memories had always existed, but now they seemed brighter, as though they had been waiting patiently for the right moment to reveal their true meaning. They realized something else that was even harder to admit. While they believed they had been trying to understand you, they had often been listening through the lens of their own expectations. Expectations can be quiet. They rarely announce themselves. Yet they have the power to hide the beauty that has been standing in front of us all along. As those expectations slowly faded, they finally began seeing you as you truly are, not through assumptions, not through old stories, but through a clearer and gentler understanding. Don't skip this part, because what happened next touched them more deeply than they ever imagined. They found themselves wondering whether you had ever felt unseen while standing right beside people who cared about you. That thought lingered longer than any other. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. And honesty has a way of opening doors that certainty keeps closed. There was no dramatic scene. No sudden conversation. No unexpected announcement. Just a quiet evening, a calm moment, and a heart that could no longer pretend it hadn't changed. They understood that some people carry kindness so naturally that others mistake it for something ordinary. Only when that kindness is finally understood does its true value become impossible to ignore. As these reflections continued, another feeling quietly appeared. Gratitude. Not because everything had gone perfectly, but because they had finally been given the chance to see beyond the surface. They became grateful that the truth reached them before they settled permanently into misunderstanding. They began appreciating the patience you showed, even when no one seemed to notice it. They admired the calm strength you carried, even when it was hidden behind quiet moments. Something important is waiting for you, because this is not where the story reaches its deepest point. There is still one question resting gently within their heart, a question they have not spoken aloud to anyone. They keep returning to it, hoping the answer will become clear. If everything they believed about you has changed, what does that mean for the path that still lies ahead? That single question is leading them toward a decision they never imagined they would make, and when that decision finally rises to the surface, the silence between your two journeys will begin to carry an entirely new meaning. Not every answer arrives through words. Sometimes it comes through an unexpected sense of clarity that settles over the heart so gently you almost miss the moment it begins. That is exactly where they found themselves. Days continued to move forward, yet something inside them refused to return to the way it had been before. The truth they had learned about you was quietly reshaping every expectation they once carried. Don't skip this part, because the next realization became the one they could no longer keep hidden from themselves. They started noticing how often they had measured people by moments instead of by character. A single quiet season had convinced them they knew your whole story. Now they understood that a person's deepest qualities are rarely found in their loudest moments. They are revealed in the choices no one applauds, in the patience no one rewards, and in the kindness that continues even when it goes unnoticed. As this understanding settled deeper, they felt an unexpected ache. Not because they wished to erase the past, but because they realized how many beautiful details had escaped their attention. They remembered times when your encouragement came softly, without asking for recognition. They remembered the calm way you carried yourself even when life seemed uncertain. Those memories, once overlooked, now felt priceless. There was another discovery waiting just beneath the surface. They realized that your quiet nature had never been a lack of feeling. It had been a different way of expressing care. While others spoke quickly, you listened. While others hurried to explain themselves, you chose thoughtful silence. While others searched for attention, you quietly offered presence. That difference, once misunderstood, had now become one of the qualities they admired most. Stay till the end, because something important is waiting for you. The heart changes slowly, but once it begins seeing truth, it rarely turns away from it. They found themselves smiling at memories that had once left them confused. They even caught themselves wondering how different those moments might have been if they had understood your heart from the very beginning. Then something happened they never expected. Instead of focusing on what they had lost, they began appreciating what still remained. Hope. Not loud hope that demands immediate answers, but quiet hope that patiently waits for the right season. It reminded them that meaningful connections are not built on perfect timing alone. They grow through understanding, compassion, and the willingness to see someone beyond first impressions. The more they reflected, the clearer one realization became. You had never been asking anyone to rescue your story. You simply hoped that one day someone would take the time to read it with patience instead of assumptions. That realization stayed with them long after every other thought had faded. Now their heart stands at the edge of a new beginning. They have not spoken these reflections aloud, yet they carry them everywhere they go. Every passing day strengthens one quiet conviction they can no longer ignore. There is something they feel they must do, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but because understanding has awakened a sincerity that was never there before. And the remarkable part is this: the step they are preparing to take is not the one you would expect. It is far gentler, far more meaningful, and it begins with a choice that neither of you saw coming. That choice is waiting just beyond this moment, where the story quietly turns once again. There comes a moment when the heart stops searching for certainty and starts choosing sincerity instead. It is a quiet moment, almost invisible from the outside, yet it changes the direction of everything that follows. This is where they arrived. The truth they learned about you had done more than touch their emotions, it had transformed the way they wanted to move forward. Stay with these words, because something important is waiting for you, and the next step in this journey carries a quiet beauty that cannot be rushed. They no longer felt the need to solve every unanswered question. Instead, they wanted to understand your heart one honest moment at a time. They realized that real connection is not built by having every answer. It grows through patience, kindness, and the willingness to remain present even when every detail is not yet clear. As these thoughts settled deeper, another realization gently appeared. They had been hoping you would somehow recognize what was in their heart without them ever expressing it. But now they understood that silence can protect feelings, yet it can also hide them. They smiled softly at this realization because, for the first time, they saw that both of you had been walking through similar seasons in different ways. Each of you had been careful. Each of you had been thoughtful. Each of you had been waiting for the right moment instead of forcing one. Don't skip this part, because what happened next became impossible for them to ignore. They began imagining what they would say if they were given the chance to speak openly. Not dramatic words. Not perfect words. Just honest ones. They imagined thanking you for the quiet strength you carried. They imagined telling you that your gentle nature had never been invisible, it had simply taken time for them to understand its depth. They imagined saying that the truth they discovered had not pushed them away. It had brought them closer than they ever expected. Every day after that felt slightly different. Ordinary moments carried extraordinary meaning. A familiar place reminded them of your calm spirit. A simple act of kindness reminded them of the way you quietly cared for others. Even peaceful moments alone became opportunities to reflect on everything they had overlooked before. Then came the realization that touched them most deeply. They understood that your greatest quality was not something you tried to display. It was something you naturally lived. Authentic kindness cannot be performed. Quiet integrity does not ask for applause. Genuine compassion does not need an audience. These qualities had always been part of you, and now they wondered how they had ever failed to see them. Something important is waiting for you because this story is approaching a place where hearts begin to meet in a different way. They are no longer thinking about what could have been. They are beginning to think about what could still become. That change may seem small, but it carries enormous meaning. Hope has quietly replaced hesitation. Understanding has gently replaced assumption. Appreciation has slowly replaced uncertainty. One thought now returns to them more often than any other. What if this truth was not revealed to create distance, but to prepare both hearts for a stronger foundation than either imagined before? They cannot answer that question yet. But they no longer fear it. Instead, they welcome it with quiet confidence. The next chapter begins with a moment neither of you will expect. A moment so simple that many people would overlook it entirely. Yet within that ordinary moment lies the beginning of something that has been patiently unfolding long before either of you recognized the signs. And when that moment finally arrives, the meaning behind everything you have heard so far will become clearer than ever before. Sometimes the most meaningful change begins so quietly that only the heart can recognize it. No announcement. No dramatic turning point. Just a gentle shift that slowly transforms every thought that follows. This is where their journey has now arrived. The truth they learned about you is no longer something they revisit from time to time. It has become part of the way they see the future itself. Stay till the end, because another beautiful layer is about to unfold, and it holds a realization that neither of you expected. They noticed something surprising about themselves. Every time they imagined tomorrow, your presence naturally appeared somewhere within it. Not because they were forcing those thoughts, but because your quiet influence had become impossible to separate from the hopes they were beginning to carry. They paused when they recognized this. They had not planned for it. They had not searched for it. Yet there it was, waiting patiently inside their own heart. As they reflected, another gentle truth came into focus. They had spent so much time wondering whether they truly understood you that they had forgotten to ask an even more important question. Had they allowed you to see who they really were? That question lingered with them. Understanding, they realized, is never one-sided. It grows when two hearts slowly remove the walls built by uncertainty and replace them with honesty. Don't skip this moment, because something important is waiting for you. The more they thought about your journey, the more they admired the quiet consistency that has always been part of your character. You never needed to become someone else to deserve appreciation. You never needed louder words to prove the depth of your heart. The qualities that matter most often grow in silence, and now they could finally recognize them with clear eyes. There was one memory that kept returning again and again. It was not the biggest moment you shared. It was one of the smallest. A simple exchange. A calm expression. A quiet act of kindness that once seemed ordinary. Now it felt extraordinary because they finally understood the heart behind it. They realized that genuine care often hides inside simple moments that only become meaningful when seen through deeper understanding. Something within them became wonderfully clear. They no longer wanted to hold on to old assumptions. They wanted to make room for new beginnings built on patience instead of expectation. That desire did not come from emotion alone. It came from wisdom that had quietly grown through reflection. They understood that lasting connections are strengthened not by perfection but by the willingness to keep learning each other's hearts. As this quiet confidence grew, they found themselves carrying a peaceful hope they had never experienced before. It was not impatient. It did not demand immediate answers. It simply trusted that what is genuine has a remarkable way of finding its proper season. For the first time in a long while, they stopped fearing what they could not control and started appreciating what they could nurture: understanding, kindness, and sincere intention. Something important is waiting for you because the story is approaching its most meaningful chapter yet. There is still one truth they have not fully spoken, even to themselves. It is a realization that has been growing quietly beneath every memory, every reflection, and every hopeful thought. They can feel it becoming clearer with each passing day. Soon, they will understand that the truth they discovered about you was never the end of the story. It was the beginning of seeing you as you have always deserved to be seen. And when that final realization settles completely within their heart, the choice they are preparing to make will no longer come from uncertainty. It will come from quiet confidence, sincere appreciation, and a hope that is stronger than either of you has yet imagined. The final chapter is where that choice finally reveals its true meaning. There is a beautiful moment that arrives only after the heart has finished resisting what it already knows. It does not arrive with noise or urgency. It arrives with peace. And this is exactly where their journey has led them. Every question they once carried has slowly given way to something far more meaningful, not perfect certainty, but quiet confidence. If you have stayed with these words until now, remain here a little longer, because the final piece of this unfolding story is waiting for you. The truth they discovered about you did not become a burden. It became a gift. It reminded them that every person carries chapters the world cannot immediately see. Some people speak through endless words. Others speak through unwavering kindness, gentle patience, and silent faithfulness. They finally realized that you belong to the second kind. The more they understood this, the more their hearts softened with gratitude. Then came the realization that changed everything. They were never truly hurt because of who you are. They were hurt because they realized how close they had come to misunderstanding someone who had been genuine all along. That thought stayed with them more deeply than anything else. They understood that they could have walked away carrying an incomplete picture of your heart, never knowing the quiet strength, compassion, and sincerity that had always been there. Instead, life gave them another chance, not to rewrite the past, but to see it with wiser eyes. From that day forward, they stopped searching for flawless moments. They began valuing honest ones. They no longer hoped for a perfect story. They hoped for a real one. And in every vision of that future, your quiet presence brought a sense of calm they could not explain. Something important has been waiting for you since the very beginning of this journey. It is this. You never needed to become louder to be worthy of being understood. You never needed to hide your gentle heart behind a different personality. You never needed to prove your value by asking others to notice it. The right understanding always arrives in its own season. The right heart learns to recognize what was precious long before it fully understood it. As this truth settled within them, they made a quiet promise to themselves. If another opportunity ever appeared, they would choose patience before assumptions, listening before conclusions, and appreciation before expectation. They wanted every future step to reflect the understanding they had gained rather than the uncertainty they had once carried. Perhaps that is the deepest purpose of this entire story. Sometimes two hearts are not separated because they lack care for one another. Sometimes they simply need time for wisdom to catch up with emotion. When wisdom finally arrives, what once felt confusing begins to make beautiful sense. So let this reminder remain with you as you leave this moment. The qualities that truly define you cannot always be recognized at first glance. They reveal themselves over time, through consistency, compassion, quiet courage, and unwavering kindness. Those qualities have never left you. They have simply been waiting for the right eyes to recognize their worth. And somewhere beyond today's quiet reflections, another chapter is already beginning, not built on misunderstanding, but on clearer vision, deeper respect, and a hope that has grown stronger with every truth gently uncovered along the way. Just when it seems the story has reached its destination, life quietly reveals that the most meaningful chapter has been waiting in silence all along. This is where everything begins to feel different. The truth that once brought a gentle ache to their heart has now become a quiet source of wisdom. They no longer look back with confusion. They look back with gratitude, because every unanswered question prepared them to recognize the value that had been standing before them from the very beginning. Stay till the end, because something important is waiting for you, and this final reflection completes a journey that was never about coincidence. They now understand that your greatest gift was never something that could be measured by words alone. It was the steady way you remained true to yourself even when life asked you to become someone else. Your kindness never depended on recognition. Your patience never depended on perfect circumstances. Your hope continued quietly, even during moments when no one else could see it. These are the qualities that finally reached their heart, and once they recognized them, they could never look at you the same way again. There is a quiet beauty in being understood at the right time. Perhaps not the earliest time. Perhaps not the easiest time. But the right time. They realized that if this truth had been revealed before either heart was ready, it might have been overlooked. Now, it carries a depth that could only be appreciated after reflection, growth, and patience. Don't skip this final moment, because it carries the message that has been unfolding since the very first word. Sometimes the heart needs to travel through uncertainty before it can fully recognize sincerity. Sometimes understanding arrives slowly so that it can remain forever. What once felt like distance has become appreciation. What once felt like silence has become clarity. What once seemed unfinished has quietly become the foundation for something stronger. As they continued moving forward, they carried one simple thought wherever they went. They hoped that if your paths crossed again, neither of you would need to hide behind assumptions or unanswered questions. Instead, they hoped your next conversation, whenever and however it arrived, would be guided by honesty, patience, and the quiet confidence that comes from truly seeing another person's heart. And perhaps this message is meant for you as well. Never underestimate the quiet strength you carry. Never believe that genuine kindness goes unnoticed forever. Never think that your calm spirit has no impact simply because it moves gently through the world. The hearts that are meant to understand you may take time, but when they finally do, they often see far more than you ever imagined. So leave this moment with peace instead of uncertainty. Continue walking with the same compassion, the same quiet courage, and the same sincerity that has always been part of who you are. The story does not end with one realization. It continues every time understanding replaces assumption, every time patience overcomes haste, and every time two hearts choose to see each other with greater kindness than before. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, a beautiful new chapter is already beginning, not because everything suddenly became perfect, but because truth, once gently discovered, has a remarkable way of leading every sincere heart exactly where it needs to be.